Welcome to the Secret Life of Therapists. I'm your host, Dr. Habiba Zaman, and I have with me Coach Debra. Today's topic is going to be incredible. Incredible for those of you who are basically looking at your life or your journey in life and being like, what the actual fuck? So that's what we're here for today. That's the topic. I was wanting to go through the journey for Coach Debra, what it was like for her and how it shaped her identity. So welcome. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here with me today.
Habiba, thank you so much. Your energy is so great, and I'm so excited to share the story because I think a lot of people can resonate with the various kind of like trajectories that we have in life. So thank you.
Right. So, therapy, one of the main reasons people come to therapy is because I'm a psychoanalyst, right? So they're like, oh, I don't really know where I'm going. I don't know what's happening. And I look at them like, yes. And they're like, so what's your guidance here? And I was like, well, what is it that you want to become? Right. And most people don't think about that. I didn't think about that. When I started my career, I'm one of those fortunate ones that I knew I was going to be someone in the helping field, in psychology, in counseling from a very, very young age. I had this school counselor. You'll see this in my show, the Women in Power show,
Uh-huh.
where, she had a superpower. She saw right through my bullshit. She saw right through me and all of the masks that I wore and all the ways I tried to be invisible. And she was like, whatever it is won't matter in 5 years. Just hang on for 5 more years, and then you get to decide what you want your life to be. So I knew, again, very fortunate that this was kind of where I wanted to be. I wanted her superpower. Whatever the fuck she had, I wanted. Because how incredible, right? My family didn't see me. My friends didn't see through me, right? I was doing such a good job of hiding the despair. And so I was like, I want to be her. And that's what I followed. However, it was not linear, right?
That's right.
At one point when someone was like, Kofi actually, during the shooting, he was like, so what's next? And I looked at him and I was like, I don't know. It's just whatever unfolds in front of me. Where, looking back now, the more practical response probably would have been, maybe I'll create this, maybe I'll do another journal, maybe I'll do an app, right? All the things that I am doing, that would have been more strategic to mention when you're doing a documentary. But I answered very honestly. And for me, that was, I don't know. Let's see. Let's see where this road takes us. Let's see what tomorrow brings, right? As whimsical and maybe a little romantic as that sounds, or delusional, depending on who you ask.
Habiba, I cannot believe what you're saying right now. So resonates with the background, my background as well. And you know what, when you said that just then, it reminded me of that quote or that statement in like The Wizard of Oz. It was in you all the time. Like it was in you all the time, and that she could see it. And that's probably what you do in being a psychotherapist as well, is like removing all the masks. I love that. It was within you all the time. And that's the thing, is to know it's in us and not to look outside of ourselves for it. So I love that you answered it that way for the documentary, because it's your truth. You don't know what's going to be, but you know what you're going to do. Does that make sense?
Right.
I love that.
So what has, like, I know this is not your probably second or even third career or stage in life right now as a professional. And that's why I was so excited to have you, right? So I can have someone who's living proof of how much transition that we go through as people, as humans, as career professionals, and as just a woman. That's a whole nother thing, right? The transitions we go through in identity as a woman. So tell me about yours.
Oh, Habiba, I love everything that you just said. You know, my story is kind of a little bit like yours in terms of what I'm about to say. And that is, When I was 12 years old, we lived in like kind of the suburbs of LA as a family. And one day I was not one day, I was watching the Beverly Hillbillies. If anybody's kind of my age or somewhere
Yes.
around there, you're
Love
going to
that
know who
show.
it is. When I
Yes.
speak to universities and colleges, they're like, what? I'm like, okay, it's kind of like, Taylor Swift. Like, just think you're watching her. I have to like, bring in some context there. But when I was young, I was watching the Beverly Hillbillies. And I don't know what happened, but something inside of me said that would be a really cool place to live. So I would every night after dinner do a PowerPoint presentation, which really consisted of a poster board and glitter. In those days, I'd go for 5 cents and buy the poster board.
Absolutely.
And I was like, here's why we should move to Beverly Hills. And I do a whole presentation that we should, because it's better schools. Then the next night it would be about better clothes or better shopping or whatever. And in those days, they'd put a stick out in the thing and say open house. So I would convince my parents that we should go there, drive there, like as a family outing. Most people go to like Cancun or something. I want to go look at open houses. And when we walk in, I'd go, Mom, you'd make the best chicken here. Look at this kitchen. And then Dad, your business would grow. I don't know where this was coming from as a 12-year-old, but all I knew is I wanted to get there. And my parents would just roll their eyes up and go, yeah, when you can afford it, then we'll move there, whatever. Well, all to say that within 6 months, we moved to Beverly Hills. And in my 12-year-old mind, it was never about, oh, I now live in Beverly Hills and whatever. It was that I had the power of persuasion. I just knew that I had the power of persuasion as a 12-year-old to have some agency about what you now know about yourself was huge. Long story short, everything to your saying was never linear. I was getting a massage by this massage therapist. He goes, have you ever thought of modeling? I'm like, what are you talking about? He happened to know Roberto Cavalli, who was just a big designer at the time in Italy, and said, you'd be a great like showroom model or maybe runway model for him. He introduced me. The next thing I know, I'm on a plane to Paris, Milan, Florence to model for Roberto Cavalli. Did that for a few years, lived in Paris, lived in Milan, lived everywhere. Couldn't afford, anything. Thank God I got like clothes for free. And long story
Reality,
short,
that's just the reality of it, right? It looks so glamorous from the outside. People often forget about the struggles, the boulders, right, that we trip over, even though it's like right there in your face.
Correct. That's exactly right. But, it was very exciting at the time. I came back. I was like, now I want to work behind the camera because I didn't really have control. Obviously, you're too fat, you're too thin, you're not blonde enough, you're not blue eyes enough, the rejection. But there were some good things in there as well. I come back. I worked for a few agencies at the time, and I was seeing a psychic. Here it goes again. I was seeing a psychic. And I wanted to see if I was going to keep this job that I was working at. It was like a direct mail catalog, and I really loved it. And I was buying the clothes. And they said, no, you're not going to keep this job. You're going to work for a celebrity with a disease that's going to affect the world. And I was like, this is the biggest waste of $50 I have ever spent. And it was the day of the little Walkman, with the cassette.
Yes,
So I,
yes.
of course, recorded the whole thing. Lo and behold, no joke, a day later, a designer that I was working with said, oh, and he said, you're going to be in PR. I didn't even know what that meant. I thought it meant Puerto Rico. Like, I didn't ask questions in those days. So the designer goes, you'd be very good in PR. And I'm thinking, PR. It was like the first time I heard it in my Walkman. I was listening to it. He introduced me to this woman, Shen Sam, who then we interviewed and she hired me. That Monday, I go to work and there's a stack of letters because it was in the days of computers were just happening, but it was a typewriter. It said, Dear Elizabeth Taylor, I need $100,000. I just got divorced. And I'm like, oh my God, wait a minute. Am I working for, she just mentioned ET. I thought that meant like extraterrestrial. I thought you worked with like Steven Spielberg or something. I, again, was not a questionable person in those days. Speaking of different iterations of yourself. And here I am now working with Elizabeth Taylor. What? Within a month, AIDS Project Los Angeles had just been formed and wanted Betty Ford and Elizabeth Taylor to be the co-chairs of the first ever Commitment to Life AIDS benefit. So now I'm telling the world about AIDS, that it was not just going to be a homosexual disease. It was going to be the disease of every man, woman, and child. You tell me, Habiba, how 4 years of college, or working in a field, whatever have gotten me to where I am. And once again, what am I doing? I'm doing the power of persuasion. What? Worked with her for 4 years, created the diamonds, created AMFAR, actually, because the homosexual community really didn't like Elizabeth. They thought they were taken away from their plight. So we had to create AMFAR for her to own her own thing. Yes. Then fast forward, I'm reading in Time magazine about this pop culture show, and it has going to have fashion and luxury and this and that. I'm like, that would be a really fun thing to do. So I take the Time magazine article, I put it in my Filofax. I'm going for a job interview at Time Warner. Again, don't even know what the job's really about, except for I think it's in PR. It's continuing in PR. And sure enough, the guy goes, well, this is a new show. It's going to be like a pop culture show. I go, hold it. I take out my Filofax, which everybody knows, and I go, are you talking about this job? And he goes, yes. I go, I've had this in my book for 6 months. He goes, you're hired. I ended up working for Bob Pittman, the creator of MTV, and creating the first of its kind reality shows. We created Cops. We created Morton Downey Jr. It was the beginning of all of those kind of reality shows.
Right. A whole era, right? A whole era.
Again, didn't take a course in that in 4 years of college. It's just to say that the universe, this is my feeling about our lives, that in the quantum field, and I'm not trying to get woo-woo here, but that's where all the, okay, can I get woo-woo? Great. I'm getting woo-woo, people, is that's where all the opportunities are. And if we can come to know who we are, separate from external expectations, then we will tap into that and it will give us what we want. So throughout my whole life, this is how it's been. And then after working with a couple of companies, I'm like, I could do this. So I opened up my own PR and marketing company because why? I could convince all the European fashions at the time that were coming to the US marketplace. It was called the Bridgewear market. Many of you remember where you take something was $5,000, maybe it was $1,200. Apparently like the public could afford that. But I was able to convince all the designers that I lived in Europe. I know who your customer is, even though I couldn't afford like one freaking thing at Pucci or Prada or any of them, but I left that part out. And I was like, I know your customer. I know how we can sell it. And before I knew it,
you did.
Because I did. Exactly.
You didn't wear it necessarily, right? That's a different story. But you did understand it. You did embody that. You did have that knowledge base. You were credible in that sense. So you could establish that trust with them, of course.
That's exactly right. And I must say, you know what? When I think about imposter syndrome and stuff, I was about to say imposter, but I never felt that I was imposter. I always felt that I could bring value, even if I didn't know maybe what that value was. Does that make sense? Like I just knew that I did. And sure enough, I ran a very successful boutique PR firm for 30 years. And brought in Pucci, Ballet of Switzerland, Krizia, Kenzo, opened the Kenzo store on Madison Avenue. What? So it's been an amazing wild ride. And what I do now as a coach, exactly what you were saying before, I architect, design, and create and craft stories for young adults going into college, coming out of college, really all the way up to, hey, 50, 60-year-olds to want to reinvent themselves, because we all have a passion, but we all want to put it to a purpose. And again, I help people to elevate their lives, to elevate who they are, even if they don't believe in themselves or their parents told them they'd never be an artist because you don't make money in artistry. And I show them how they can.
Right. But I think what you just pointed out is huge when it comes to that development of sense of self, right? Is what your parents told you. Yeah. You brought up an idea at 12 to your parents. You're like, I want to go see this. Let's go do an open house. They said, okay, right? They did indulge your creativity or wherever your mind was. They were fine with that. They did give you reality checks. Like when you make money, you can do this, which is a good parent, right? To be able to give the child a reality check, but the support was always there. That belief in who you are what you think and what you have to offer, that was cultivated, that was nurtured for you. And like you said, if, they had a parent, one of your clients, if they had a parent that said, you're never going to amount to anything in this field, they carry that within them. So that imposter syndrome, that seed of doubt, it comes from childhood. So it is really, I tell my clients, this is just textbook. And the reason I say this is just textbook
You're
is
right.
because you're not abnormal, right? This is not something that's so strange and so impossible to overcome that it's just not going to. I try to normalize, like, yeah, this is textbook. This is what happens when you have this or you have this. And a lot of the way you show up for the world stems from that, of whether or not what I have to say has value or it doesn't, right? Your family made sure that your voice had value. So you showed up with the world like, hey, bitches, watch me go. Whatever the outcome's going to be,
True.
I know someone's going to be there to catch me at the end, right? For people who don't have that support, they have love, because everybody defines love very differently. So many of my clients say, I know I was loved. When I say that was emotional neglect, they're like, but I was loved. Yes, they loved you the best way they could. And these are the things that we're missing, which is why we are here where we are today. Does that make sense?
100%. It's so interesting that you say that. I love this conversation. I think so many people could get value out of this, because when I started working with kids 7 years ago, I was like, okay, here's what we're going to do. This is, you want to be an architect, you want to be a psychologist, here's what we have to do. And but to your point, I'd go, well, my parents are divorced and my father cheated on my mother. And so my mom came to try to help me because I was really struggling that first year in college, but all she talked about was a divorce. And I'm kind of sitting there, to be honest, with going, okay, let's get to the part. And I was like, oh my God, I can't get to the career because they can't get to the career. That's why they're calling me. It was like, boom, I have to excavate who the people are, because here's the point, to your point, growing up, for everybody, for me too, it's like, what are you going to do? What are you going to be? What GPA do you have? What extracurriculars are you going to do? Oh, what? And then everybody, all the kids get tracked like at 12 years old. You're the ballerina, you're the football player. And you're like, oh, okay, I guess I'm that, like you have no clue why you are being told you're that. And I have to go back and say to the young adults, or even adults, who are you?
Without these things.
And the tears start to come. I had a girl one time, I do a workshop at an adult camp, and she was this beautiful Indian girl. She was gorgeous. I go, so who are you? I think her name was Sharta or something. And she goes, well, I just raised $5 million for an app or whatever, because she just graduated from Cornell. Who are you? And she kind of had a look, and she goes, well, I'm a daughter to my parents, and who are you? Breakdown. Every single time, because they don't know.
Most people can't answer that. Right? Who are you without all of these roles that you play, without the achievements that define you? We're not taught how to do that.
That is correct. That is correct.
My children are different because, again, they have me for a mommy. So they have no choice but to be different in that. But one of the things, and this is societally, like you're saying, with my youngest, he just turned 15. Right. And for the last maybe 3 years, I'm going to be a doctor. And I'm like, take the classes first, and then you can see if that's what you still want to do. No, I know I want to do that. Why do you want to do this? I want to help people. Right. But why that one particularly? That's how I think I can help people. Okay, fine. Take some classes first. Right. Because I've been really instilling in him, give yourself the option of that fluidity of, I get to change my mind, because so many people don't learn that they get to change their mind. I married this person, so now I'm stuck in this bullshit relationship. You get to change your mind if it's not where it was and where it's going, and you guys aren't growing together. That's okay. Right. Or my eldest is now going through a heartbreak. First one. And that is just as defining as, as who you end up becoming with how that was, right? So he's going through that process right now. Very painful to watch. I actually talked about this in my last podcast, where I do feel like an imposter, even though I have all of this education and skill set, and I do this with my clients all the time, but with my baby, right? I feel like I'm incompetent. I cannot, I don't have the capacity to be able to heal him because again, I can't, right? I can't fix that. I can't fuse that heart back
Exactly.
together. But,
Wow.
even that it's okay. It was such, you could see him struggling for a while with, but I love her and I'm committed to her and I was supposed to be with her to then this is not working. And then what does that mean? But I'm not supposed to, right? Like that rigidity of mindset. Thank you, Disney. Thank you, Hollywood,
Yeah.
Bollywood, right? Like this is the love of my life and this is the first love, right? Like that's going to be end all be all. Oh, he was so offended that a couple of years ago when I told him, I was like, this is going to be the beginning of many relationships. How dare you? I will marry her. And I was like, you are correct. I am so sorry. That was so insensitive, right? Because, and my partner was like, you just said, you just apologized. You didn't try to challenge it. I was like, no, I didn't challenge that. Thought every relationship I've ever had from the very first one was that is my end all be all, right? This is my happily ever after. This is whatever. And that rigidity of mind, it causes so much suffering
Yeah.
because it creates our own self-imposed roadblock of being able to course correct and just say, oh, you know what? I'm on the wrong train tracks right now. I'm on F. I need to be on B. Let's jump ship and then get off on the next station and then course correct. We don't allow ourselves to do that.
100%. Oh God, I just love everything you're saying. You know what I've come to learn in relationships? I was married for 35 years and divorced 4 years ago. And with all the learnings that I've done, is that again, how I teach young people how to find themselves and find out who they are and find out what their passions are internally. I wish that in terms of marriages today, and I think there needs to be a course correct to your point on that from a societal standpoint, that if we are not aware, we're marrying our mirrors. So instead of
100%.
right,
Textbook. Again,
it's
textbook.
textbook. But how come nobody taught me the textbook? Or thank God your son has a mom like you that can show that your first loves, your last loves, what are just mirrors. And if we could almost act that we are aware of the mirrors instead of fighting it or blame and shame and this and that and whatever that puts more labels on us, that makes us then have to like question all that. If we could just say that you're a mirror right now and what I'm hearing or seeing, it would just open up such a bigger world and that we could keep our own autonomy while we're in a relationship. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's again, I followed my blueprint, right? Because that's what we do. And by the time I
Mm.
learned about it, I was already in that marriage. I was already pregnant and pregnant number two. And I was like, fuck.
Really?
You know?
You felt that?
Yeah. Because I was just like, wow. And I had all this theory now playing out that I had learned. And I was like, my sister, she sends me this meme at least twice a year when she's like, you try so hard not to marry the angry father that you had that you don't realize you became the angry father. Same thing. Same thing, right? When you don't know about yourself. And that's the thing that I say so much about people who are against learning about themselves or against therapy. And the reason I just keep saying therapy, obviously I believe in what I do. But there are things that not only have we been trained in, but we are able to see from the outside that you don't, right? That person right there, they don't. They could do, I write the self-help books, right? So my first one was about building your identity, building that foundation, Beautifully Bare, Undeniably You. And then 8 more in between until the last one, which was how we choose who we love, right?
Yeah,
Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. I think you can understand why that book was written.
exactly.
And that came
Exactly.
out in 2022. Um,
Wow.
but it's a guided kind of step towards figuring these things about you. People have this misconception still that you go to therapy because something's wrong. And that's just so wrong,
Exactly.
right? The reason things are wrong is because you didn't know these things about yourself to begin with, right? All
Because you
the
couldn't
life
see
I've
them.
ever endured is because I didn't have access to therapy
Yeah.
when I was a child, a teenager, a young adult, to know this shit about my pathway, right? And then be able to course correct. I didn't know it, so I didn't. So I made the choices that, again, textbook, that you do when you have that kind of life leading up to wherever.
Exactly.
And it would be so much easier if people would be like, I just, this is just part of my curriculum of learning who I am.
Oh, I love that. It's so interesting you say that because throughout the years, I've created a thing. It's called the to-do list that people can download. It's on my website. And it's kind of like, I could have had a VA. Like if I just had known. And what I say to people when people are like, well, what are you going to do with me for 5 weeks? How am I going to find my career? I'm like, here's what we're going to do. You have a house right now. And this is exactly what you're talking about, Habiba, is you've got a house right now. Do you like all the rooms that you can walk in your literal home? Like not literal, but like in your body.
Right.
There's rooms like, oh, your father yelled at you. You don't want to go into that room. Or, oh, you got like let go of so many jobs. You don't want to go into that room. Well, now you're living in a house. You're only in one room. Like maybe it's your bedroom. And maybe a lot of times you want to close the door. So let's excavate your house. Let's take it down to the studs. And through my to-do list, I start to inquiry who you are. And one of the questions is, what were you doing in your room or outside, lost in your joy, passion, happiness, when time just flowed before your mom called you for dinner? It has to be between 5 years old and 10, because as I said before, in middle school, you get tracked and then you don't know who the fuck you are anymore. Excuse me.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Please,
And
how many F-bombs have I dropped already?
exactly. Oh, I love that's why I felt so comfortable in doing so. And it's just the tears start to come and the thing starts to come. And all of a sudden, it's like a light bulb in a light socket. Like, that's who I am. That's who I am. And I'm sure you have this in your practice, but it's like, wow, they finally came back to their essence. And from your essence of who you are, with now the blinders a little bit off,
Right.
getting the blinders off is what you're saying, they can start to see themselves in a different way. And that's how we start to write a new chapter, just like all the chapters I just mentioned to you.
Right.
And
So
that
tell
when
me
we can,
about yours. How did your aha moment happen?
well, again, I think it happened from my 12-year-old sense of self, to be honest
Uh-huh.
with you, because everything that I've done since then is really about, convincing people, convincing that you're better than you think you are. Okay, that happened in your past. Too bad, so sad. I do get a little, not angry, but it's like, let's lose the story. The story you're in is not going to help you to write your new story. So we got to burn that chapter or put it on a shelf and let's build a new one. And that's what I've just done my whole life. I've never really sat back and went, oh, boo hoo, boo hoo. It's like I just always knew that there's other horizons, other
Okay, next.
chapters to be
Or
written.
thank you next, like the song. Thank you
Yeah,
next.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. You know what? That's exactly right. That's how I felt. Even now, to be honest with you, I was through a situation with my daughter, and maybe a lot of people, and I'm sure that you're dealing with it. There's a trend right now about estrangement and how a lot of people are cutting their parents off and cutting people off, and it's especially happens during divorce, as you know, that the child will
Yours is a
align.
recent one. It's only been 4 years.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. But my daughter was very close with my husband because he was an enabler. And I was, like you were saying, like the bad cop person my whole life, as I'm sure a lot of people on here can relate to. As a woman, you're the fixer, you're the this, you're the that. Maybe not a role you want to play, but you're in a family dynamic that forces you to be that. And so we were estranged for a lot of years. And I did a deep dive on what does this mean? Like, is the worst kind of ambiguity than somebody dying. And that's a
Oh,
whole
it's
other,
awful. It's
yeah.
awful.
Do you get a lot of those people today? Do you get a lot of estranged
So
parents or family members?
only when there was abuse,
Yeah.
right? That is something that I encourage when there's been abuse and there's constant, because again, the person, you can't grow in an environment that breaks you, right? And unfortunately, even with my clients in their 20s or 30s, when they realize how damaging
Mm,
and how limiting these parental relationships are, it's very, very difficult for them to cut those strings.
yeah.
But to your point, marriage dynamic is oof. Look at that. It's making my head itch. My head itches every time I get like stressed out.
Yeah.
So, because I experienced something similar with my eldest. For the longest time, I was the villain in his story because he was protective of the victim,
That's
right?
right. That's
Which
right.
at that time was his father.
Same.
So
Same.
that was again, as far as my identity, that, ooh, let me tell you, if that did not do a lot for my identity as a parent, as a mom, as a woman, and all the shoulds, right? That bitch slap us in the face of, I should be this, I should have that, I should have this relationship with my son, I should. And all those things completely fuck with your sense of identity.
Correct. Correct. And that, oh, I love this. And exactly. And I want to get back. First of all, I'm just so curious, how did you reconcile that?
Tears. Now, mind you, my go-to emotion, right? The representative for me
Mm,
is, and it's different for everyone, but mine's anger. So if I'm driving and someone runs a red light and I'm scared, right? Because that's fearful, and my kids are in the car, I'm gonna cuss them out, like in the car, rah, 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 like a fucking chihuahua, right? Like I just go off.
same.
Anger is my representative. And it's funny because I was talking to my dad 2 days ago, and he was like, well, yeah, anger is mine too. And I'm like, I wonder where I learned this shit from, right? And then I was like, yes, I know, because it keeps you safe. Because
That's
being
right.
angry is safe. Being vulnerable was not. Being afraid, sure as hell was not. Being sad would get punished, right? What do you have to be sad about right now? So nothing was acceptable. However, being angry was the only thing that they would laugh off or be like, oh my God, you're such an angry person, but it was accepted. Does that make sense? So that became
100,000%.
my protective representative. That's who shows up. For my co-host, Kaylin, she says it often. She's like, mine's sadness. I feel very sad. And I'm like, that's your representative. You had an environment where that was safe enough to show that. And then under that anger, like I told you, is confusion, is fear, is all the other actual emotions. The anger is not the real emotion, right? That's just the representative that shows up for me. And so there was a lot of anger at myself, though. How did I fail him? How did I fail my child that he can't see me for me? That he is able to be manipulated in this way, that he is able to, see it and contort reality in a way where it's continuously protecting the abuser.
100%.
And it's very hard, especially with the knowledge that I have on all of this, to sit there and take it.
I bet. How did you infiltrate, or how did you do it? Did you give them space? There's so many different things now on TikTok and Instagram, and I follow so many people that
Right.
how did because I've asked
Well,
you for my space and you're not respecting that kind of thing.
yeah.
When you know better, you want to.
Well, I would tell him one of these days you will see truth for what it is. And I stopped defending myself. And
Oh, I love that.
like I said, lots of tears after that, because then it's just this constant onslaught of me as a failure, as a mother, that my own son can't see me for who I am. Right.
Mhm.
And then the narrative that he was being fed from the other side, right, that fueled that. And so in the beginning, like you said, being a woman, you're the fixer. I would fix the perception when he would do something that either dropped the ball when it came to parenting, or did something he wasn't supposed to, or hurt the kid's feelings, right?
Mhm.
As the good parent, I should explain to them that that was not the intention, and that was not this, and that was not that. But then not only am I justifying his behaviors, which is a betrayal to the children, because I'm not empathizing with them and how they feel, right?
Right.
But then I'm also, no one's there to do that on my end, right?
That's
So then
right.
and I was the more strict parent. I was the one with the rules, and this is what needs to get done, and this is what I expect from you. And so not only am I placating that side, I'm also then the constant villain because I'm always the enforcer.
Yeah. And the explainer, having to explain her the
Right.
situation kind of
So
thing
I
instead of just
didn't get
being,
to be the one that held them to say, I'm sorry this happened to you. I'm sorry that hurt your feelings. Right. Because I again, I come from a family where I didn't have my birth mother with me. And so I didn't want my children to ever feel that loss of not having a parent in their life. So I did everything that I possibly could to keep that. And then I was like, I'm doing this and I'm losing them. What's the point? They get him and then they lose me because I've I'm just the mean one at this point, right? And the one that does do whatever and disappoints them, then I make excuses for that person. And so
yeah.
I stopped that about 3 years after the divorce, and their relationship very quickly deteriorated over the next 6 or 7 years. Where I was like, then I could empathize with them whenever they would be hurt, and then I would give them tools to communicate their hurt to him to say, if how do you feel? How does this feel? And they were in therapy, obviously, because that's another thing with my eldest, that was not, he would not receive it from me,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
he was convinced that I was this manipulative psychopath, right? Apparently, they were shown a book at his house, Parenting with a Narcissist. That was hilarious.
Oh my God.
Because they were, I think, 8 or 9, maybe the eldest was, and he was like, "What is a narcissist?" And I was like, "Why do you ask?" And he was like, "Dad showed us a book that said Parenting with a Narcissist." I was like, "Right."
Oh, oh my God.
So, you know,
Everything you're saying. Yeah. So
you
true.
real you relate to it.
Well, it's so interesting. I mean, yes, everything you're saying, and it really actually, this just feels so good. I know this to be true. What you're saying is how we are perceived or whatever. And it's funny, once again, though, and it's funny, my thing is the anger too. But what I've done, and then I thought, how ironic is this that I help young parents call me, oh my God, my kid won't speak to me. If that's just not a universal thing or like a metaphysical thing right now, that Debra, all right, you're going through this, but I want to show you, God or somebody, that you are a good person, that you can help so many people. I've worked with thousands of kids that have changed their lives. I can't change my own kid's life, just like you're saying about the breakup, right? You can
Yeah.
counsel everybody on breakup, but when it comes to your own flesh and blood, it's a whole other thing. And here I've helped, and so many parents call me desperate, almost like a therapist, like, oh my God, I don't want to. I tell my kid, did you look for the job? I go, you stay the parent because I want to help them too, not fall
Right.
into what I did. Is I think you have a son that's going off to college or maybe did go off
Yeah.
to, but those years are the freaking worst, right? What college, and you're so into it, and the SAT scores, that whole thing has to change too, because that just breaks everybody, to be honest with you. And so I just wanted to change that. And then I put it into a play that I'm going to actually, I want to invite you. I'm having my first reading June 24th in New York. And I have a play written called America's Mom. And it's about a mother who kind of had her own career, like you have, that I've had, that many people have, and the daughter estranged, and it's the daughter coming back to work out some of the things, trying to take those baby steps to reconciliate, because we find out that, I'm giving it away right now, that she's pregnant and she doesn't want to continue the intergenerational,
Oh, love it.
right?
That, like, I don't know if that's based on reality or not, but the decision not to continue intergenerational trauma is such a brave one. It takes so much courage to break these patterns. Love.
Yes. And I don't think something like that's been done on Broadway. I mean, there's been dysfunctional families and all that stuff, but with this trend happening about this thing, it is about intergenerational, and we have to start to look at it. Like you were
Right.
saying, like with your dad, and what you said is just so true for me. If we could come to understand those parts of ourselves, those shadows, and take the blinders off by creating this perfect story and knowing that all of our lives are messy, all of them are what they are, and even teaching our kids that there's no freaking perfect life, that we
And
can all be in
the,
the uncomfortableness, because that's where the
right.
growth comes from.
That's been my greatest struggle, I think, and personal growth is growing up, you know this, it's the how are people going to judge you, right? What are they going to think? And I have no qualms about that anymore, clearly.
Yeah.
But for the longest time, I was a representation of the Zaman family, right? And so to make sure I don't bring dishonor to my family, I say that and the kids laugh because I'm like, dishonor in you, dishonor on your cow, dishonor on your entire line, right? Because that's what I grew up with. That is the mentality, the pressure. And then being the eldest daughter, right? Like definitely being I roll because you know it.
That's a
Because you
double
know birth
whammy
order
right
is a
there.
real thing. Yes. And so breaking those required, and it was one of the other things that played into me choosing to let him be him, and whatever consequences follows with my ex is the children will just see that this is who he is, right? And I have to hold space for them for when they're going to get royally hurt. And I knew that, which is what I was trying to prevent. I was trying to prevent them from feeling the same loss and pain and identity crisis that I had as a child because of my life at that time. I wanted to make sure they never faced that, right? But then I realized I'm not helping the situation because then they're not going to have that real relationship with me ever. And with that, one day my son said, what did I say? I identified an emotion, right? And this had been coming up for a while. We were going to Bahamas, first trip with my babies, and I was excited. We were going to go swim with the dolphins, and I'm doing a little dance. And I dance all day long, every day, all the time now, right? And I remember I was doing this little dance on the boat, and he was like, "What are you doing?" It's like, "I'm dancing." And he's like, "Okay." And then I'm going down the ramp and he's like, "What the fuck are you doing?" Like, he's just looking at me like, "What the fuck is this?" Right? He could not calm me. He was like, "What is this?" I was like, "I'm excited." He's like, "Oh." And then it hit me. My babies don't know what excited mommy looks like. What is that? They don't know because I was just in survival mode, right? It was just meet needs, meet needs, meet needs, meet your needs. And that was it. Just
Anticipate, which is the
right.
killer. Yeah.
Exactly. And so when we came back, I was just like, you do know we have like a range of emotions, right? Because hello, failure as a therapist, it was my first thought, right? And he was like, I guess. And I was just like, what emotions does mommy have? And he's like, two. Mind you, he was like 8 or 9. He was old enough to know different.
Yeah.
But I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, you're good or you're mad. And my anger shows up the way all of my emotions does. Like right now, I'm excited and I'm loud, right? You can feel the energy through
Yeah.
this. It's loud. When I'm sad, it's loud. You see it, right? It's heavy. When I'm excited, it's loud. So guess what? When I'm angry, that shit's loud too, right?
Yeah.
It's a personality. It's not abusive. I don't tear people down. That's not what I mean by anger. It's just loud. My voice gets loud, but my voice gets loud with everything. And that's something that they've had to learn to heal, that not loudness doesn't mean conflict or detriment or chaos or threat, right? That's something they've had to unlearn because that's not what it was for them, right? But when he told me I was either good, not even happy, I'm just good, I exist or I'm angry. And this is while I was still married, or right after I was married, I think something like that. It was very shortly after. And I was just like, I failed these babies. I
Mm.
failed to show them what a functioning human being looks like. How are they ever going to know how to be vulnerable or expose any other emotion other than, right, keeping it all together or being angry and upset at the world when everything goes to shit? That was the only two modes that they saw of me. So that had to change. And I had to then allow myself to
Mm.
let them see the full range of what it means to be Habiba. And now they're probably like, my God, it's a bit much.
I opened up a Pandora's box.
But
So wonderful.
we didn't have that. I didn't have that growing up, just like my dad didn't have that. It wasn't safe for him to expose any other side of himself other than being good and contained and everything's under control or angry, right?
Yeah.
So they get to have all range of emotions in this house, and then that's okay. So allowing them to navigate that with me as well, that took a lot. And that was something that eventually brought my eldest son back to me is, he will say things now. It's
Wow.
been about a year that he hasn't been in contact with his biological father, and it's been about 2.5 years with my youngest. Both their choices. It's always been whatever you want, however you want, after you've attempted to repair or explain or this and that, because I need them to have healthy relationships outside too, right? With
Yeah.
everyone. And they can't do that if I don't teach them the skills with everyone. And so, and they did, these little babies, they really did. They took all of these things and they tried to make repair and then realized that that's not going to be possible. That the pain that they get from this relationship does not outweigh the benefits, right? Or the love, or just understanding, acceptance, all of the above. That the detriment was severe especially for my eldest. It was really severe to his mental health and emotional health. And so that's the decision that they made. And every now and then you still see them processing it, even though it's been a few years. They're still processing it and they'll get frustrated with me. Why did you choose him?
Oh.
Why did you allow this to go on for as long as it did? And then I have to explain, and I told my eldest, I was like, baby, I was the villain in your story for a very long time. I couldn't say anything about him. I unfortunately had to let you figure that out for yourself. And one thing that kind of brings me solace is now when they encounter relationships like that out in the real world, as he's going into college, as the other one finishes high school and goes into college, they'll know what to do with it.
Yeah.
Versus me, that I had no clue what to do with it. So I was trapped in it for years.
Yep.
It's
Totally.
unfortunate that they had to learn it at an early age, but going
You know what? I
forward,
think they'll be healthier for it.
going
Because
forward,
to
right?
your point that you brought up probably a couple, times ago, is that, you get these clients that come in at their 40 years or 30 years or 50 years, and they're starting to realize like, oh, wait a minute. And that happened to me it's funny. I was thinking today, like, when did it change for my ex-husband? And I remember we were celebrating a birthday at 40 and he just had this depression and he was learning what he had grown up in. And now I had to be the recipient of his not knowing till he was freaking 40. And so I love that your kids, it's really painful. We want to protect them, whatever. This is the real world. Let's take the blinders off as early as we can. Let them have agency to figure it out, because they will then in the long term, hopefully, have better relationships.
Right. And then one of the things that you said, and we talked about this when I met you in Miami, where having to be the fixer, you're obviously, side note, I just had hormone stuff checked out because I've been struggling health-wise for years at this point. And my testosterone was so low, right? It was about 20 points below the low it's supposed to be.
Ooh.
Right. It was out of 17. And I think it starts at 40 to 60 is like the healthy range
That's
for my age, my mid 40s. And it was 17. Right. And my progesterone was like 0.05, under less than 0.05. Like it didn't even show up on the panels. Which explained a lot of the health problems I was having, right? Because my body's not functioning without the essential hormones that you need to function. But I would tell my friends, I'm like, well, we figured it out. My testosterone is non-existent and my estrogen was overcompensating. So it was, I think the high is like 150 or something, and mine was, no, 144 is the high end marker, and mine was 252.
Oh, Jesus.
Right? Like, what the hell? So my son's like, you're just all woman then, aren't you? And my friends are like, go take those tests again. There's no way you don't have enough testosterone. Like the way you fucking show up to this world, there's no way you have too much testosterone, if anything. Right?
Yeah.
And that's how I've always been described, because I'm, scrappy. Like I will fight. I used to fight in high school. I would defend people, and that's what I would do. I wouldn't defend myself, but I would other people that I would see that wasn't, being treated well. And then I'm just aggressive, right? Instead of assertive, I'm aggressive. I'm, my son read one of my emails that I sent to the board, and I was like, does that sound normal? He's like, it's direct, but you're direct, right? Instead of what does direct usually equate to as, if you're a woman, right? You're a bitch.
Right. You're a bitch.
Right?
Exactly.
You're that.
You're controlling.
So,
You're a bitch.
My friends laugh. They're like, you have too much weight, too much fucking testosterone. Don't even tell me you don't have enough. Like, I can't even fathom that. But that's it. It's a joke, but it's so true, because we show up in the world like bulldozing through life, right? Like, I know what I want. I'm going to go get it. Watch me.
Yep.
But it's exhausting.
Yes.
Right. And then when I met you, I was like, I'm in this. Well, I was just sitting there, and you had said something about the way I was sitting or something. I was like, girl, I am in, like, bring it to me, feminine energy. Like, let's go. I'm ready to be feminine goddess over here. Like, I'm tired of chasing after life to give me what it needs. And you were like, yes. So, but that's so hard. People don't realize that's so hard to break when that is all you've known, right? That go, 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 go masculine energy. Tell me about yours. Has that transition begun yet, of you being able to set that down?
Oh my God. I feel like I've known you for a lifetime. Like, this is so crazy, that this connection that I'm feeling right now, that I hope that people watching this too are like, you go girls. We should have like a community of us, because it's so interesting you say that, because I have always been like this. You know what I mean? I did have like a sex little kitten thing going on, like in my teens, when I was like a model, like I would just, I was like a whatever. I don't want to call myself a whore, but I just did. But you know what I mean?
No,
Like,
you were sexuality.
I had like a lot of sexual energy. Yeah, I did. And then, it's interesting you say that. We had moved to New Jersey for 4 years, and I became like the freaking exorcist. And I realized now, and I was seeing therapists and I was on medication, and I realized that I was going through menopause. And in those days, I sound like I'm 100 years old. I came over in a like covered wagon, but no therapy, nobody said, Debra, I think you're going through menopause. So I was going through puberty when my kid was going through puberty. And that's a huge regret, because I just didn't know. I just thought I hated where I moved to New Jersey. I was all alone. I'm a pretty friendly person, as you know, and I couldn't make a friend to save my freaking life. As my kid's going through struggles in middle school, I couldn't be present because I was so deregulated. And that's the point too, is that now I've learned through the Gottman Institute, as you are well aware, how to regulate myself, how to find out who I am. Through my being able to be nervous, regulate myself, I can get hopefully into that feminine thing. And in fact, I have a date set up in New York coming up, and I say to myself, how do I speak my truth? He was sort of saying, would you like to come over for dinner, or would you like to, my preference would be to make you dinner, but I'd also take you out. And the old Debra might have went, okay, well, that's what he wants. Okay, I'm going to do that. But internally I'd go, why the hell would I go over to somebody's fucking house the first time? I'm like, no, Debra, you can have a voice. You don't have to say it like that. Right. That's the difference. I don't have to go to that angry Debra. Like, how would you even think that? It's like, Thank you so much. That sounds awesome. Love to go out the first time. Hopefully there'll be a second dinner where you can make me dinner.
Right.
I'm still, be honest with you, I'm still working on that because it's not natural to me. It's a new
Right.
learning for me.
Right. Right.
But I know I need to step into that. I don't have to go back to the old sex kitten because trust me, my levels are way lower than yours, like non-existent. But it was when we first met last week, I was like, this feels really good. We're having a great conversation.
Yeah.
That in itself, I didn't need kind of the hormones to feel that came naturally. And I want to see where it goes. And I have protected myself enough and long enough to know that I deserve this. I don't need it. I don't need any of it. I have an amazing, also in that, unlike when we were married, I have an amazing life. Like I have created in these last 4 years, the best life I could even ever imagine.
Right.
And so I want to bring that sensibility into a new relationship, if that makes sense.
Those other especially romantic relationships, I always teach them as it's the cherry on top.
Yeah.
When everything else is, where it needs to be, and you understand yourself enough so that you're not bleeding on people who didn't cut you. That's the point of heal yourself before you get into another relationship.
Can you wait, please repeat that. That was brilliant.
I don't know.
Bleed. You said don't bleed on people who didn't cut you.
Yes. So that's the point of healing yourself before you get into a relationship.
Okay, that was a mic drop. That was like a mic drop. That's exactly right.
Right. And so when you go into go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I'm learning how to ask for what I want, but in a more feminine way or a more truthful way. Just being more vulnerable doesn't mean that I'm going to get hurt. It means that I'm choosing to show up differently.
Right. And it requires safety. That's the part that I feel society is mishandling, is that for men and women to show up with vulnerability, to be able to have intimacy and connection, there has to be emotional safety. You have to be able to tell your truth, and then it's going to be received without consequence. And again, I would love to be in that kind of feminine, right, era, but that requires that safety, because if it's not, watch me be the protector, because that's what we've had to be.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And that I've done the inner child work and stuff like that too. Yeah. And all of that kind of work that I know, like I'd say 85, 90% of who I am.
Yeah. And that's always evolving, right?
Yes.
I think the max that you could ever really know about yourself, right, at any given point is about 80%, because you're evolving, you're growing. So look forward to the next transition of Debra. I'm excited to see the next transition of Debra, like in this new era of finding myself, finding my femininity, and allowing that to show up for me. I love this for you.
Yeah, I'm so excited. You know what? Age is just, it really is just a number. And yeah, I feel younger and more, like, especially working with young people, like having this kind of energy. And I feel that way with you. Like I've always had so much energy, and people who don't understand, like, oh, you got so much, like it's too much. You're not my people. You're not my, I only want to be in this kind of energy. Right. I only want to be in this kind of exchange, because this is where
that's
life
what fuels you. Yes.
Love
fantastic. Well, thank you, Debra. Thank you for coming and sharing your story and sharing your struggles and the triumphs and everything. I really appreciate it. This was a fantastic, fantastic episode. Absolutely. Thank you so much. And I can't wait to connect with you further down the road. Yes. You're wonderful. Thank you. And thank you guys for listening and indulging us in our talk about life and identity and our processes and the struggles along the way. We'll talk to you next time.